Alright, so at this point what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to actually link our water blocks together. I want to do it now, so if I need to make some adjustments to the length of the tubing, it's easier with the motherboard out of the case. Now the key to getting a good seal on these tubing is a flush cut. You need to have it good and straight. No burrs or anything like that. It needs to be flush and round. Now we're going to kind of guesstimate our measurement on this. Now we want this to go in without hitting that's not where we want it. So the way this works is this is the in, this is the out, this is the in, this is the out. So we link these together. So we're going to have to put our insertion here. We're just going to kind of guesstimate here what it's going to be to get it there. Now we don't want any kinks in it. We don't want any heavy pressure on that tubing, because that tubing will leak if you put too much pressure on the units, on the corners and stuff. So now we're going to go ahead and take it off of here and put these insert sleeves on. This is how this has to go on. These go on first because these tighten it on the unit. So what I had to do was, this one was too short and it was causing a kink in the hose. So I had to go from here to here. So that gave me a nice good bend. It's going to keep me just under the power supply profile, and then this one will be the outtake to the VGA block. So here's how this kind of works for you who aren't familiar with the liquid cooling system. The coolant comes from the pump this way into the block, cools the block. The warm water comes out of this block and into this block to cool this Northbridge system. The Northbridge then comes out and into the VGA block, which will be on the video card. The VGA block then cycles back out to the radiator, which is external. What that does is it creates a cycle. It's just like a circuit, just like a normal circuit. And so cool liquid comes in, hot liquid comes out. It's just exchanging, and it'll drop the temperature of the processor. But after installing those, they're like this, we are good to go. We are ready to start assembling the computer now. So what I did was I attached the two extra long legs of tube that I've got for the intake and outtake, one for the VGA block and then one from the pump forward, because I don't want to have to deal with it later. I'll cut it to size once we get the board installed. I also hooked up the Wi-Fi connections to the Wi-Fi chip on the board. And at this point in time, we're just tightening everything down, and we're going to do the final installation of the board into the chassis at this point. No leaks. That's the plan. Alright, so let's get the chassis. So, they gave us this little clip, the little faceplate here to put in the back of the chassis. Because this is the standard faceplate, all these little pieces haven't been punched out. Each board's different, so you're going to have to punch out your own according to your own makeup of your board. But for me, I'm going to have to remove several of these. So basically what I had to do was punch out the ones that I'm going to need. Now I have to find the orientation to match the board. Well, now that I've found that, I'm going to go ahead and insert this in. This takes a little bit of pressure in here, so I use my little flathead screwdriver to push it in. It doesn't take a lot of pressure, but it takes some. Okay, so now we need to go ahead and remove the 3.5 bay on top that's actually going to hold the burner and the SSD. So I've already gone ahead and taken the screws out of the case here, except for the very last one, which we're going to take out now. And this just slides out just like that. And you can see it's one unit, which makes it nice. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to install the SSD. Now you can see the 4 holes here for that. So we're going to install that first. Now I've already formatted the SSD and all that, so it's already got the Windows 7 Ultimate on it. And once again, this is that G.Skill. So I went ahead and installed my SSD just using 2 screws, making them just mildly tight. It's not going to vibrate out of here. I'm not real worried about it. Okay? So next step is to put the reader in, which we'll do next. I'm sure everybody knows how to do this, so we won't be recording it. It's not a hard issue, but as you can see, even if you're new, it just goes in, you put your 4 screws in it to stabilize it and line everything up in the front. It's very simple. So, went ahead and put 2 screws in each side on diagonal angles, and we switched up the diagonal angles on each side, and we put those in fairly securely. So we have our SSD, which is our operating system, and then the back. So we've got the access to the SATAs. Now we want to put our SATA cables on here now to make it easier for installation later, because our motherboard is going to be sitting right here. So with our motherboard here and our SATA cables here, it's going to make it extremely difficult to go back and forth and get your fingers back in there and try to get the 90s in, and it's just a nightmare. Put them on now, it's going to save you a lot of headache later, okay? So as you can see, we went ahead and put the SATA cables and the power cables on it now, so we don't have to screw with it later. Alright, next step is putting on the motherboard. We're going to go ahead and put our line through our case to the other side. So there's no friction there. This goes right in like this. Now we just line on this side. Now we line the motherboard up with the chips. Now be careful, sometimes these little things like to get in the way. That happens sometimes, so just pay attention. Don't smash anything in there. Don't break anything. Just back it out, pull those up, and they'll line up just fine, okay? So I lost my protective covers on those, but we'll put those back on in just a minute. So we're going to line up our stuff here. Now I'm going to go ahead and put in my case screws. So that's what it looks like now that it's mounted and we've got this case screws in. And now we're going to start getting into the actual setup and the wiring of it, which is the easy part for most of you. So this is our video card that we're going to be using. It's a 256-bit. I went for something with like I said, the medium profile. It's not a full-size card. We're going to remove the heatsink here from the top. There's the screws we're going to be pulling out. And then we're going to be putting our VGA water block on. So after that, we'll let you know. Alright, so we went ahead and put on the 4 posts. Got to secure them in the back here, just like that. Looks good. We put our extra thermal paste on there, made it nice and level across the whole thing. Now we're going to go ahead and insert our water block on it and tighten it down. Just like that. Take our 4 remaining screws here. And then once again in that star pattern, when you're tightening things so that it gets tightened evenly.